The last ever Pac-12 championship game is right around the corner, and the Washington Huskies have a chance to make history here as they take on the number 5 ranked Oregon Ducks this Friday night in what will probably be the last ever game played in the Pac-12. So what I want to do in this video is a quick run through of how the Washington Huskies got to this point and where they can go from here if they win this game against Oregon. Now, this year's highly ranked Washington Huskies team is being led by 6-year quarterback Michael Penix Jr. Now, he's one of those guys that got extra years of eligibility because he redshirted and due to COVID. In fact, if there was never any COVID, Michael Penix Jr. may have never gotten the opportunity to become a full-time starter at the collegiate level, because this man spent the first 4 years of college as a backup at Indiana. In fact, he never got a true chance to start until he reached Washington in his 5th season, and that's when he put everybody on notice. Now, we know that throughout all of college, there's about 130 something teams with plenty of quarterbacks, and yet some of these guys still don't get the opportunity that they deserve or that they need to make a chance for themselves. And Michael Penix got that in Washington. I mean, just last year, in the 13 games Michael Penix Jr. started for the Washington Huskies, they would end up going 11-2. He was actually undefeated in ranked teams that he went up against. And during that season, he had a 65% completion percentage with over 4,500 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, and a QB rating of 151. His stats not only look phenomenal, but he showed up against some of the best teams in the nation. Heck, in the Alamo Bowl last year versus Texas, he defeated a top 25 team in the Texas Longhorns, who sure had their ups and downs, but were still good enough at the end of the year to play in the Alamo Bowl versus the Washington Huskies. What does Michael Penix do in that game? Throw for over 250 yards and has 2 touchdowns, as the Huskies would end up winning the Alamo Bowl 27-20. And that was huge for the program, because I couldn't tell you the last time they had won a bowl game. And Michael Penix kept the momentum going with the week 1 performance he put up against Boise State, which was arguably one of his best games all year. Of course, he wouldn't know it at the time, but Michael Penix threw for astonishing numbers. Sure, he is a little bit of a mobile quarterback, but the things he's able to do in the pocket are truly remarkable, such as the 450 yards and 5 touchdown passes he threw in a single game, this time versus Boise State in week 1. He really put Washington on the map very early on, especially with this kind of performance. These are Heisman level numbers. Of course, would he be able to keep this going all season? No, not really, but he would be able to lead this Huskies team to success over and over and over again. Hell, shout out to his receiver, his best receiver, Rome Odunze, who played very well all year. He played very well in this game too. 100 receiving yards and a touchdown. Yeah, shout out Rome. Now, I would argue that Washington's first big win didn't come until week 7 when they went up against the Oregon Ducks. Both teams highly ranked at the time, so this win meant a lot. Hell, Michael Penix Jr. had Oregon's number just a year ago, and currently he is undefeated against the Oregon Ducks right now. So everything is favoring Washington. But in this week 7 matchup, it was a back and forth battle. Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., both potential Heisman quarterbacks, were going at each other's throat, and it was such a great game to watch, okay? It kicked off with, I want to say, a Washington Huskies touchdown, 26-yard pass to Glenn Jackson. And then later in the first quarter, Michael Penix Jr. would do it again, this time to Jalen Polk for 26 yards. And Huskies were leading 8-14 by the end of the first quarter. And things would just keep going for the Huskies. It's not like they would put it into cruise control or anything, because the Oregon Ducks always had an answer. So in the middle of the second quarter, Dylan Johnson got a 7-yard run into the end zone to give Washington back their lead, and it put the game at 22-15. But like I said, what does Oregon do? They answer back, this time with a small little 45-yard field goal. That did not stop this Huskies team, because after the half, they came out and they came hard. But anyway, Rome Odunze would get one of the biggest catches of the game, and he would receive a 17-yard pass from Michael Penix Jr. to give them one of the biggest leads in the game as of then. 18-29, the Huskies were leading. However, the Washington defense did kind of fall asleep for a little bit because they gave up back-to-back touchdowns to Oregon to not only put them back in this game, but also give them the lead. And then came the game-winning drive at the end of the fourth quarter, and this is where Michael Penix Jr. proved to the nation that not only is he a top quarterback, he is one of the best quarterbacks and should be in the Heisman conversation for what he was able to do to a very good Oregon defense. And with a minute left after driving down the field in 2 plays, he gives an 18-yard pass to Rome Odunze to give the Washington Huskies a 3-point lead, and that lead was big enough for them to hold on to and win out. And ever since that game, Washington has been looked at as a top 4 team in the nation. And as great as that game was, it isn't the only good win Washington has on their resume, because in week 10, they would go up against a still considered good USC school who had Caleb Williams, yes, the man who just won the Heisman last year, on this team. And if you've watched any USC football, you know they have a terrible defense. It doesn't matter how good Caleb Williams is, their defense gives up like 30-40 points a week. And they did the exact same thing for the Washington Huskies. They gave them 52 points. Now, as great as Michael Penix Jr. is, this game was all about Dillon Johnson, their junior running back. He had 4 touchdowns. Yes, 4 touchdowns throughout the game that were all pivotal because this team just kept getting in the red zone and they needed to convert, and that's what Dillon Johnson was there for. In fact, he had 256 rushing yards on the ground in only 26 carries. This man was the bulk of their offense, and honestly, when you're going up against USC, who does not have a good run defense, you're going to run the ball, and Washington had a game plan, they stuck to it, and that's exactly why they won this game, 52-42. And if you still didn't believe that Washington was deserving enough of a top 4 college playoff spot, then this last little gauntlet of games they've had would have definitely changed your mind, because the last 2 out of the 3 games that they played in, 2 of them were against ranked opponents, and can you guess what they did? Yeah, they beat them. In the game against Utah, it was 28-35. Washington barely edged it out, and that wasn't thanks to Rome Odunze, who had 111 yards, 2 touchdowns on, can you guess how many receptions? Only 3. He did not have as many opportunities as you'd hope, but with those little opportunities, he was able to make the most of them, as he got the only receiving touchdowns of the game. Yeah, Michael Penix only threw him touchdown passes. Everything else were just runs to either Dillon Johnson or Michael Penix Jr. himself. Anyway, it was enough to take down the Utah Utes, essentially end any hopes that they had, and, put Washington further along in the face of the committee. Again, they would follow that up with a spectacular performance against the Oregon State Beavers, who they barely edged out. This has been Washington's whole season. They barely edge out their opponent. And you could argue that they are being bailed out by their defense, because in this game, they only won by 2 points, and the defense got 2 interceptions for the team. Fantastic play. They played pretty well all season, if we're being honest, but this game was very important for the Huskies, and their defense was a big catalyst as to why they won against the Oregon State Beavers. And Rome Odunze had himself another 2-touchdown game. So what can you say? This man is one of the best receivers at the collegiate level. And it might just be because of his quarterback and how great Michael Penix Jr. has been playing. Who knows? All I know is that Oregon should be shaking in their boots as they look to take on a very strong Washington Huskies team who they've already lost to. And if you don't realize by now, I have the Huskies winning the Pac-12 championship and winning the college football playoffs against whoever they may play. Anyway, that's about it. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.